Thanks for joining us for another Kickstarter conniption. Today we're looking at Fall of the Mountain King from Burnt Island Games.
Yeah, and as always, we want to make you guys aware that our overview videos are sponsored in part by the Kickstarter backers that we have and the creators of this game. Hey guys, and welcome back to another Kickstarter overview video at a Tantrum House Studio 3. I'm Jonah Do.
And I'm Sara Meadows. Today we are looking at Fall of the Mountain King. Now this is a prequel to In the Hall of the Mountain King, also by Burnt Island Games, and this new game is designed by Adam Dalton.
Yeah, and Burnt Island Games was kind enough to send us a prototype version, which we've gotten to the table, so let's take a look at it now and check out some of the components and how it's played. The game is broken up into 3 waves, and each wave has several phases.
In the first phase, you will build your ancestry by drawing 4 ancestry cards into your hand, pick one, and add it to your ancestry. You must cover at least 1 quadrant of an existing card.
In the second phase, it's time to battle. On your turn, you can take 2 weak actions, which are represented with no numbers, or 1 strong action, which is indicated by a number.
The third phase is the end of the wave. You add a gnome from the supply to an overrun cavern. Gnomes will evade from several gates. Champions are awarded, and the wave is scored.
In the final phase, you will refresh the board for the next wave.
And at the end of the third wave, the player with the most honor wins.
And that's an inside look at some of the components inside Fall of the Mountain King. So this one for me, I was having a good time playing this one, but there was a puzzle aspect to building those ancestry cards, right? Because every time you get one, you've got to cover up 1 quadrant of a different one you've already played. And I honestly felt like first time I played it, I was doing so poorly at this.
Same here. So you are limited. You play those 3 waves throughout the game, adding more and more cards, but you're limited to a 6x6 area.
Yep.
So you can't just kind of use 1 corner and build it huge. You are limited to that area, so you have to cover up things. But the important piece of that is to get the actions on there you would like to use in the game, but also try and get them lined up so that you can cluster together so that when you have a group of them that are orthogonally adjacent, you can take all of those as one action instead of having to split up the 2 smaller actions or the
1 strong action. Right.
Yeah.
Another added component to that is if you take an action or there's an action separating 2 and you cover it up, you use that in a previous turn. At that juncture, those 2 actions with maybe something in the middle now become orthogonally adjacent for that cluster move. So there's just that puzzle component that's like, man, right here in front of me, what I'm doing that nobody can mess up, I need to make sure I get this right, you know, in order to have a good game.
It's interesting that component of the game kind of reminds me of that pyramid of your trolls move from the first game.
From the first game,
but this is a different puzzle, and it is you're instead of gaining resources through it, these are the actions you're allowed to take with that part of the game.
Right.
And then you have the battle phase where you're taking those actions. Let's go over what a few of those are. We pointed out on some of the cards you can see as we go along. So there is the hammer action that actually moves your trolls on the board, and you can move them from anywhere that you through areas that you are, but you're instead of just placing them out, I think it's an opposite to what we usually think of in a lot of these dudes on a map type games where I get 3 movements, so I'm going to move this guy here, this guy here, this guy here. It's 3 get to go to this one space.
To the same spot.
Which is a little bit different, so there's new thinking involved in that.
You got to get the hang of it. That part of taking the actions is kind of where you now interact with the other players, right? Because you're building your ancestry. You are interacting because it's a draft, right?
Yeah.
You're going to put one down and pass. But when you start taking the actions, I think they call it the battle phase, round 2, or phase 2, is where you start interacting with the other players, right? So it's like, am I putting more people out to try to beat these gnomes, to try to take over, have the majority in an area, right? Should I go over to the some of the other player boards, or not player boards, but some of the other components to the game, right? And try to get that first before other people do that. I got to make sure I'm doing my ancestry right to see if I'm covering up the right symbols so I can link them together later. So there's a lot of kind of strategy, but it's I would say it's like personal strategy and then interpersonal strategy and then back to personal, right? It's like got you thinking in these different kind of waves and components. So
another thing is the influence on the champions.
Yep.
So every round there are champions available. You start with one at the beginning of the game, and then depending on how you have set up your ancestry, how many of those symbols come up in your ancestry is how much influence you can have on them. Whoever has the most is not only going to gain that champion, but also, and the ability, which some of them are very powerful abilities.
You can't sleep on the champions because you need those abilities. Yeah.
Then you also get to go up on those influence tracks, which are huge end game victory points.
I think it's the voting track for each kind of clan that's in the game. And that's a huge thing because those voting tracks are first, second, and third point placements. So you can't not do that and kind of be behind. So it's this balancing thing where it's like, okay, I want to win these areas. I want to take out these gnomes that are on the board, but I also need to make sure I'm getting champions, which means I have to have influenced them, which means I need to be up on the vote track. It's this whole thing going on. So I thought, for me personally, that the game had lots of different components. It had a lot of, so again, it's mostly area control, right? But there was so much of, I need to be paying attention just a little bit here, I need to be paying attention just a little bit there, that I kind of thought that it was very robust. It had lots going on to it that I really enjoyed Fall of the Mountain King.
I did too. So if this looks like something you're interested in, you can check it out on the Burnt Island Kickstarter page that they have up for Fall of the Mountain King, which is the prequel to In the Hall of the Mountain King. Thank you so much for checking out our video here, and hope to see what you think in the comments below.